Good morning, YouTube and Twitch. Welcome to Watching Thrones. I'm Roth Cornet, joined by the small council of all small councils, Spencer Gilbert.
Hey, Roth. Good morning. It's Monday.
It's Monday. We're off to a rocking good start. We have our maester with us. It's Michele Boyd.
Hi, guys.
She's going to keep us on track about all of the lore this morning.
Oh, no. Way too much responsibility for me.
All of the responsibility, all of the fun. This is a Night of the Seven Kingdoms. The moment in the episode that made us all cry. Also the title now being revealed post-airing, so that no spoilers are out there, though we do know the title of next week's episode, which we will get to. Written by Brian Cogman and directed by David Nutter. We are going to get into it. Spencer Gilbert, nothing but alliances this week.
Oh, yeah. Some bonds were forged, lots of reunions, a nice little denouement before everybody dies next week.
Okay. Good show, guys.
Yeah, all right, see you
that does it.
No, there were tons of alliances forged and weakened. I think primarily the one that I'm most interested is Jon Snow revealed his true identity to Daenerys, which is he is Ant-Man, lover of ants.
That's right.
And though we didn't get to see it play out, this potentially has the biggest impact on the rest of the season. So I just want to ask you guys, if that scene were allowed to go on, if they weren't so rudely interrupted by the apocalypse, where's Dany leaning at this point, finding out that she no longer has the strongest claim to the Iron Throne?
Saved by the Horn.
Saved by the Horn.
I mean, I think it's really telling that Dany's first reaction is, oh, you have a claim to the throne. We're not going to talk about us. We're not going to talk about the relationship or how this affects you. How does this affect me and my relationship to the throne? I mean, and that's been, as she said, that was her whole focus for most of her entire life. And now comes along this guy who she's already kind of admitted to Sansa she was maybe manipulated a little bit by. I think it's telling that she's been calling it Jon's War. And then now here he comes to possibly take her throne, too. So it's not a great look for her.
I kind of put myself in her position because I feel like a very interesting phenomenon around this show is that people are extraordinarily hard on either Daenerys or Sansa all the time. And I certainly understand the complaints around any of the given characters, but just in defense of her for a minute, think about her position. She was sold off by her brother when she was just a girl. Mm-hmm. She had to learn a different language. She had to survive. She had to lose the love of her life. She had to survive that. She had to birth dragons. She had to prove herself again and again and again. She's been through multiple wars. She's been working her whole life. She's had one thing driving her just to stay alive. The loss of her child. She survived all of this, and it's all been towards this one goal, and she stopped. She listened to Tyrion, who totally led her astray again and again and again. And then she listened to Jon. She fell in love with him. She came to fight his war, as far as she understood it. She left Cersei to take the throne. And now, all of a sudden, to her point, very conveniently, your best friend and your brother are telling you this, and no one else in the world knew. And now you're telling me after you bent the knee and I decided to come help you? Like, that's a very awkward sort of set of circumstances for her. I understand the criticisms of her and her ambition, but if you put herself in her position, almost no one, like she says it to Sansa, I wish I could trust the people around me the way you do. Everyone has betrayed her or failed her. And I think maybe this is the moment where all of that catches up to her and she makes a very bad decision.
Well, and also just a quick thing to your point, though, is like Jon also probably could have started that a little better. Like, he could have just been like,
there's no easy way to say it.
He's gonna give up his position. He has time and again, like his claim to the throne. He says he doesn't want it over and over and over, but he's not reassuring her of that and being like, hey, listen, just so you know, before I drop this major knowledge on you, this doesn't change anything. We're still cool. That maybe would have been a better preamble than, hey, check out my mom.
The situation was forcing that on them because, this is like their last night. This is before they all go off to college or whatever. So there was a certain intensity. And Jon had just learned this yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, literally yesterday. So
he
didn't have time to really think about the best way to sell it because he probably didn't even know if he was going to say anything until moments before.
I'm not blaming Jon. I think Jon's in a really crap position.
Yeah.
But I just think if you think about, I'm not saying she's even making the right choice, but he didn't abdicate, which he normally does. Mm-hmm. He hasn't abdicated when Sam told him, and he hasn't abdicated there. What I want to know is not what she would have said. What would he have said? Because I think because he didn't say anything, we're leading to the point where Daenerys takes a total heel turn and things are falling down.
Is here. Oh God.
The Night King is here. Winter has come. I think this is the moment where there's the whole idea, and we'll get into this more in the show, Azor Ahai, right? So one of them, Jon or Dany, and there's this idea that you have to sacrifice the one you love, and it's this noble sacrifice. But what if it's not? What if her ambition in the worst possible moment gets the better of her?
Yeah,
and in
I
this
think
war,
that's
she sacrifices
Jon,
thus fulfilling the prophecy
could be. And
for
I think
her.
that's why people are reacting maybe a little more harshly towards Dany than other characters, is because everyone else in the show is foreshadowing, oh, the Mad King, oh, your dad was kind of a hard ass, oh, you just burned 2 people alive. Like, it's kind of telegraphing her slide into the depths. So anything, even if it's understandable, her motives for being kind of a hard ass or being really a stick in the mud about her claim, like, that's because we all don't want her to go mad and stuff like that. So we're hard on her because we know where this is headed. We've seen this happen before, and we're all like pulling in the other direction when we react to her.
I don't disagree, but I think it's like this show is about people doing bad things for good reasons a lot of times, and people sometimes making the wrong decisions because circumstances led them astray. And I do think I agree with the complaints that these aren't the best choices she could be making for the greater good. But if you just put yourself in that human position and everything she's gone through, and plus she just had this confrontation with his sister, who it's very clear Theon is loyal to, that has the loyalty of the North, that even the person that she was in alliance with has more loyalty to the North. She's feeling very vulnerable right now. Who does she fully have that's on her sides besides Jorah?
Yeah, I mean, talking about the when you were saying like the apocalypse kind of interrupted them, I mean, it's like Dany can't finish a conversation. I mean, between the one she had with Jon and then also the one she has with Sansa being interrupted by Jon Royce coming, or actually I think it was Maester Wolkan that time coming in to interrupt them.
It was basically Theon just being
yeah, exactly.
Poking his head
but
in
like
it
was yet another moment of, you know, she was being asked, what are you going to do and what's happening here, and it just kind of cutting off before the resolution of the situation.
So where do you guys fall on that at the end of that conversation? Who's being more unreasonable? Because Sansa again is being the pragmatist and looking ahead to after the war and kind of quibbling. They're both kind of quibbling over titles and, like, you know, shuffling around the pieces for after they assumedly win the war against the dead. Who is being more unreasonable?
They're both being crazy.
Right.
They're both being crazy. Like, this doesn't matter right now at all. If any time your ego should just fall down and, like, join forces, it's now.
Daenerys has 7 other titles.
Yeah.
Like, 6 kingdoms is plenty of kingdoms.
Or just why? I mean, the weird thing to me again is, like, she's the one that says, I want to break the wheel. She left and said, let them find their own system of government when she left Marine. So to me, it's like, why it's this thing that if you were brought up your whole life and it was drilled into you again and again and again, this is the only reason you exist, to lose that, I think, is like the annihilation of your personhood in some way.
I agree. And I will say, as much as I defended Dany last, or actually in Jon's position last episode with, like, why does Sansa care so much, or like, why does it matter how we're going to feed all these people, like, let's worry about actually just surviving this war. I did come down a little bit more on Sansa's side this time, what's going to happen after the war. Like, I understand a little bit more thinking about the longevity and what might happen after the battle, but, like, was I the only one who thought there was a chance when Dany came in that she was going to ask Sansa to be her hand?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I
really
so
thought
did.
so.
I
They
thought
were
we were
holding
getting
hands.
a Sansa.
It was symbolic. Yeah.
I thought we were getting a Sansa Dany ticket, and I was here
fully
for
on
it.
board with it. Like, I mean, she was so disappointed in Tyrion, and, like, she started talking about how, you know, men are manipulated, and you've done really well as the Lady of Winterfell. Like, I thought we were gonna get, like, a female thing here going
for it.
You
I
know,
was so
to
here
speak.
for it.
I was here for it. Yeah.
Do you think it still might happen?
I think it still might happen because, well, we can get into it later. I don't think Tyrion is long for either the show or the world or her side or however you want to slice it. I think we might be saying goodbye to him sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Either as a heel turn or as dying. Because this whole episode, we can talk about this alliance or lack thereof, has been not so much foreshadowing, but plunging into darkness the relationship between Daenerys and Tyrion.
Yeah.
Over and over again, it's been like, you effed up, buddy. You screwed the pooch this time. You're probably not going to be a hand for much longer.
No, it's okay. He started drinking again, so now he'll also know things.
Okay.
It's fine.
Oh, good.
That's
good.
been the issue all along. The forced sobriety was just not a good look for him. He just forgot everything.
Was he really sober? Actually, was
haven't
wearing the
seen
black
him.
like straight edge?
Haven't seen him been drinking in a
Westeros?
little while. It was like till this scene that you see him even get back to it.
Wow.
I wonder if there's something to that, though, in the sense of he has been repressing his nature so much that part of his spark and his intelligence is part of just allowing himself to be who he is.
It's true, because there's a sweet spot of being drunk where it's like
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 drinks in and like you're smarter, but then it
And you're
it falls
really
into
good at
plummet.
darts and shuffleboard.
Yeah,
Like,
really good at,
really good at beer pong.
And then there's the dark place. That's the next level down.
Then there's the slide into the crypts.
I think there might be something to that, but there definitely, I thought that too, because she was setting it up saying, well, I wanted him as my hand because he's intelligent and so on. And she was describing Sansa's role right now. And
Ruthless when he needs to be.
you made such a good point last week, and I noticed it this week, that the camera is in the dominant position when it's on her.
Yeah. They really are elevating Sansa's position in every way, shape, or form. I'm here for it. I love it. Finally. The whole time, the whole episode, I'm just like, finally. Thank you.
So yeah, she also did get to be the ultimate decider when it came to Jaime Lannister, whether he would live or die or join. It's really, Dany kind of is abdicating a lot of decision making to Sansa earlier in this episode.
Yeah, which I'll say. I mean, we're gonna bring back this Raging Throner thing, but I'll say mini Raging Throner.
Sure.
Sansa's battle dress is so great.
I
All
love
the
it.
leather. I love it. I'm very happy. Very happy about it.
We actually, you did an accidental call out, because we actually have a piece on fandom, but it's great, and it's about the evolution of her character through her outfits, because the evolution of her character has largely been told through her outfits, even to the point when she became more Stark again. She had abandoned her Starkiness and sort of taken on the clothes of King's Landing. When she reclaimed her Starkiness, she sewed the direwolf herself.
Starkiness.
Anyway, that's just a
No. You know I'm here for the
Sansa-ness.
costumes.
Speaking of ladies in armor, the one other alliance I wanted to talk about was the Mormont family reunion. Lil Lyanna Mormont, all dressed and ready to go for battle, talking to Uncle Jorah? Cousin Jorah, yeah. Am I the only one that, like, I really like the girl power when it was, like, Dany and Sansa, but, like, for Lyanna, like, can we just watch her get punted like a football through some uprights?
Excuse you?
I'm sorry. She's a child. Like, I get it. She can command. She can, like, totally put people in their place. But, like, at some point, she's 9 years old.
She's doing good. I like that they actually called out that, I mean, even though Jorah's trying to send her down to the crypts, he has no real authority over her.
Sure.
She is the head of
She's
his
welcome
house.
to make her own mistakes,
Yeah.
but, like, let's call it what it is. Like, she's zombie fodder. Right?
Well, I mean, that's the interesting thing. One of the things about this episode was who was fighting to fight and take part in the battle, and then who recognized that they'd be more use not in it.
Safe in the crypt.
Seeding the field. And I did think that was kind of like a repeated refrain of,
Yes.
I want to fight, maybe I'm better, you guys will be better off if I just kind of hang back a little bit.
Yeah, throughout the episode.
And for her, it's frankly unclear.
I'm just curious
Outlook unknown.
how that's going to work.
I still love her. And again, like, I just want to be clear for the people that are probably yelling at me about this. I understand the criticisms of Daenerys and Sansa, but I also think, like, we have to put ourselves in the position of what that life might have been. Because these are not black. One of the things that's great about the show is that these are not black and white characters.
No. And then just touching last on that reunion or that alliance is Jorah now has a special sword with its own name, Heartsbane, which is a real shame because I think Jorah's going to die next week and someone else is going to have to take it. But may he wield it well.
Yes.
Lon has a fan theory about Heartsbane.
Oh, it's not my fan theory, but it is a fan theory that was going around, which is that Jorah is going to become Azor Ahai, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, because the prophecy links up to it's got to be a hero, and he's got to stab his beloved through the heart with a magical sword. Well, now Jorah has a Valyrian steel sword, and we know that there is a character who he is very much in love with, who is maybe thought could be involved in becoming a wife, becoming the Night Queen. There's all that fan theory going on about what's going to happen to Dany. So I think that was the idea, that he may have to step up and kill Daenerys with Heartsbane, which would also be the title of the sword, Bane of the Heart. It would sort of all kind of tie together that way.
I like it.
Michele, People have swords.
Wait, what? No. Yeah, there's some Valyrian steel. I'm sure there's a couple more scattered throughout the country, but there's most of the Valyrian steel, the named ones that we know of, is back up at Winterfell. We have, let's see, Jaime's got Widow's Wail, Jon has Longclaw, Jorah now has Heartsbane, Brienne has Oathkeeper, Arya has Littlefinger's Dagger. And I mean, just as a really nice little kind of ending to it, with both Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper, you have ice back in Winterfell. Because it was smelted down into those two. So I do enjoy that both of those are back up in Winterfell where they belong.
So my one question about that.
Please.
Does Jaime knows that Tywin made those two swords? He tells him, right? I'm
Yes.
trying to recall.
Oh, yeah.
So it could come up. Jaime's aware vaguely that both of these are actually the Stark swords melted down.
Yes, he is.
He could duct tape the
Awkward
two of them
conversation.
together and
Well, he
then
could
give
just
it to
give
Arya.
one to Bran and one to Sansa.
Smelt everything all in one. Make
Yeah.
one big giant shield of
Gendry do it.
Valyrian steel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gendry's handy, which I think handily brings us to our next topic,
Nice, yeah.
which is that everyone's getting knighted 10 times in Westeros. The person that is best equipped, I think, to introduce this topic to us is Sophie Turner herself. Let's play the clip.
Honor of Easter, I guess Game of Thrones wanted the storyline to have a little Easter bunny hopping into that
This is my
Drinking
favorite.
wine. Just drinking wine.
Guys, Aria and Gendry. Now, Aria was pretty searched last night, and I think I know why. People wanted to recall how old she is on the show and just make sure they were okay to be shipping this. Were you guys shipping this?
Yeah, I didn't need to see it. I didn't need to see it happen. We've been following Arya since she was 11, and I know it's perfectly age appropriate for the actors and the characters on the show. But it's just like we've seen her grow up. Like, I don't know. I was like, good for them, but also this is I'll sit this sexy now.
Like your little sister a little
It is
bit?
Yeah.
a little bit, it's a tiny bit squicky, but to be honest, like, we saw her murder so many people, and
That's
I'm
fine.
sorry. but
That's
if-
fine. This
if
is
you're-
America.
If you're gonna get all pearls clutchy about her, like, getting laid the night before she's probably gonna die, I'm sorry, I have no
I
sympathy
wanted them
for
to
you
just
at
make
all.
out and then a tasteful pan to the fireplace. Just a tasteful pan.
Incest romance stories on this show.
Yeah.
Multiple relationships that are incestuous, and you're upset about Aria and Gendry?
This
I
is,
get
one,
it.
this is one of the healthiest sexual
Yeah,
relationships
it might be
on
the
this
healthiest.
show.
I'm not upset. I was tweeting everybody
Yeah.
swiping red in Westeros. Everybody. I think, listen, the only thing that I did note was that she was getting into the how many is your number conversation very, very early.
Slut shaming Gendry.
And-
Well,
Yeah.
she doesn't have a lot of experience with
Chill.
chill.
She wants to make sure she's not going to die of the pox in like a week or two. Survive the battle only to die of the pox later. Like, that's not cool.
Yeah, it's assassin school. It's not like cotillion. Like she's pretty low on social graces even before she became
true.
a murderer. So
Right.
she hasn't had a chance to kind of learn to flirt. She didn't go to high school.
My only thing was her look kind of afterward. I was just like, oh, is she reconsidering and go find Pod? I mean, just...
I think it was more of the look of like, this is her first time, and I think it's the look of like, oh, that's it. You know?
Well, the truly, yeah. It's
Everyone's had that look.
Let's be
A lot
honest.
of build up, and for the most part,
Oh,
you're
that's
just
what
like,
that was?
Yeah.
and maybe that's why they clarified the number so that it was like,
Maybe he didn't have that much experience
I don't
for
know.
her.
I think Gendry probably did great.
Well, the real
Deep
horrifying
dives.
implication of all of this is Arya spent her last night potentially, looking to lose her virginity. Classic sex comedy romp plotline. Who did she go to first? The Hound. And then she only left when Thoros interrupted.
Barrick showed
Barrick showed up. All right, well, you two are up here. I guess I gotta go
Wasn't here for
down
a
to the
threesome.
basement.
That is not cool, man.
Spencer.
Oh,
No.
although might be talking about the people who were shipping the Hound and Sansa at one point.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so someone was probably here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for everybody getting what they need the night before they
That's
maybe
fine.
die. Everybody.
This episode was very much about like resolutions for all.
Yeah.
Just tie everything up in a neat little bow as much as humanly possible, so everyone apparently will be cool with the death match next week.
And it is. We looked it up, and I think she is on the show about 18. It's age appropriate. We wanted to
yeah,
make
yeah.
sure.
That's
It's the
fine.
Middle Ages, so you're
She's
you're
fine at
middle aged by
14.
the time you're 14, exactly.
Yeah.
But also, I did want her to transform into Walder Frey.
Exactly.
Like she could just shapeshift
Yeah,
in the middle,
exactly.
like on multiple times in the middle.
And this was nice to have the whole Robert Baratheon, prediction come true. I have a son, you have a daughter. That was, fine, cute. We saw that coming from last week. That was nice.
It is nice. I mean, I think I told you guys when we did our predictions for the end of the series, my whole assessment right now is that it's everybody getting exactly what they wanted poetically. It's just not in the way that you would want it to happen, and this is one of those examples.
Not everybody gets what they want, because I'm feeling like Dany in season 2. Where is my ghost?
Yeah.
That was not my ghost. Hashtag not my ghost.
Oh,
This
he's
is to
hanging out.
scale.
You're just never
people.
happy with anything.
This is how big Ghost is supposed to be in comparison to Jon. You're talking about like fan favorite relationships and everything. What about the relationship between Jon and Ghost? No one even acknowledged he was sitting there.
Well, he's a good boy and he's loyal.
Yeah, he was just sitting
No
there.
one pets the good boy.
They couldn't afford a pet.
Never happened.
You know what? It is interesting, and this is a different topic, but it does feel like a lot of times that once a fandom is this big, we can't be made happy. It's like,
Yeah.
I want elephants.
Yeah, you're
That's true.
Cersei right now.
Yeah, I'm absolutely Cersei right now. I'm just gonna sit here and drink my not wine and be
It's,
mad about Ghost.
I think you're speaking
Giant's
for a
boob
lot
milk,
of people,
actually.
Michelle.
This is my giant's milk.
I think you're speaking for a ton of people who agree with you.
I'm here for it.
Well, I think, but the point is they did seed Ghost, so we'll see him in the battle.
Yes.
Okay, the big fan theory this week that we wrote about was on Aria's weapon, and you can go and you can leave your own fan theories, which we'll be talking about. Obviously, whoever said quarterstaff with dragon glass blades wins. One of the big theories had been that this was going to be detachable so that it could kill Viserion. So what are you guys thinking about now that you've seen it?
I think it's full on just Darth Maul weapon. She's just gonna bow staff it out and be able to stick White Walkers with both the pointy ends.
Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't find this very interesting. It's a stick with two knives on the end of it. There was an interview with the guy who made the weapons for the show that said, like, there's a real show-stopping weapon this year that I'm super excited about. I assume it's that, so I assume it'll have, this isn't even my final form, and it'll turn into something else.
Just gonna turn the handle like blade, and like 3 other little dragon class things will pop out.
But at this point, like,
It was detachable in the schematic, right?
It had like an arrow
was.
going in, but that could be like an IKEA diagram of like you put this
Certainly.
end into that end to twist it, and then you got it.
I think that is going to be Chekhov's blade, and it will play a bigger part than maybe she's going to like kill the Night King. I don't know. We'll see. Jaime and Brienne. Okay, did you guys watch? Warning: if you don't want to know about after the episode, what Benioff and wife said.
We'll do this again when
it's
we stop
over.
talking about the preview.
But they openly said that Brienne loves Jaime, is in love with Jaime, and that she herself just isn't even aware of it. Was that what you were picking up?
Yeah, I mean, again, she's not the most socially adept person, and when they met each other, like they were both choking up, like just talking about battle, but like they weren't talking about battle. So yeah, you don't talk like that to somebody else unless you have some pretty strong feelings.
I guess that actually doesn't really count as a spoiler. It was kind of one of the extra things.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's like
already safe. You're good. We're fine now. Sorry. We're gonna talk about this, in a bit for when he knights her, but it was such a good going back and forth. I really was trying to figure out what his feelings towards her were, because there were moments when he's almost looking at her kind of longingly. There's obviously he respects her. One could argue just even in their conversation where she was saying, we haven't gone this long without you insulting me, and then him asking to serve under her was such a good moment for her. and just it was such a good reminder of how far his character has come full circle.
It's just a bummer. So Tormund, poor Tormund. I feel like Tormund's the better. Like if I was her girlfriend, I would be like, Jaime's the bad boy, and I get it. But Tormund totally gets you. He totally understands who you are. He would knight you 10 times over, and Jaime only knighted you when he brought it up. By the way,
Yeah, Tormund invented Westerosi feminism right there. Just saying.
Yeah. Also, Tormund is 100% down for an open relationship.
Fully.
He does
Absolutely.
not
yeah,
care.
No.
no,
They are the wildlings are poly, and they're into thruples.
yeah. He poor Tormund.
Bringing bears, bringing giants.
giants.
Like it doesn't even have to be all human.
Wasn't he? He was suckled by.
Yes.
Yes,
Suckled at the teat of a giant for 3 months. That's why he's so strong.
Yeah.
absolutely. And then spills all of his beer down his front.
I mean, I guess I
Sure.
like it. He's just pure comic relief at this point.
Yeah,
like he's
Tormund.
not a character. He's like Kramer. He's like he just pops in like an office linebacker and says funny things.
But he literally did that when Jon and the Night's Watch are greeting each other, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
just
Jumps
comes
in from the
barreling
side.
from the
Yeah.
side. Poor Tormund. The people voted for Tormund to be most likely to die this week, which of course he didn't. But his hopes to hit it with Brienne did.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I think he's down. Even if they're a couple, I don't think he cares.
Yeah, think it'd be fine. He'd be like, yeah, sure, have fun with the blondie, but you know the real actions with the ginger. It's fine. You know the real kissed by fire.
Yeah.
But we can't skate over Jaime knighting Brienne.
No, we can't.
It is such an awesome moment. I mean, I cried. Everyone in the room cried. It obviously just meant so much to her. And yeah, Tormund was the one who initiated it. But Jaime, feeling Jaime come around, it's like, oh, great, cool. Thank you for coming over to our side. And I mean, from the research I was able to do, at least a little bit, she really is the first actual female Westerosi knight. There's obviously been a lot of female warriors, both, past Targaryen queens and also wildlings, but I believe she is the actual official first.
Yeah, what about
So,
Dorne though? They probably
nice.
maybe they don't call them knights.
I don't think
or
they call
something.
them knights.
Dorne has a completely different
Yeah.
kind of culture, though. I thought that was a beautiful moment. I cried too. It was the fulfillment of her life stream. It was finally being in reckoning. I mean, look, what does any human being want but 10% more love in any given situation? And that means different things for different people. You make it mean different things. For Daenerys, she's like, I have to sit on this throne, otherwise I don't exist. And for her, this was the first time that she was really, for Brienne, allowed to be and praised for and validated for who she just naturally is. Like, that is intense. That is a huge moment on the show, and it also makes me convinced she's probably going to die next week.
Yeah.
Like, the happier and
Really?
more meaningful the moment this week, the more optimistic and future forward for the characters this week, more likely they're going to die next week is my theory. So Grey Worm and Miss Sandy, I'm very worried about because they're planning to go to paradise.
Oh yeah, that was the guys in the Vietnam movie in the chopper being like, "Is
Oh,
that your
yeah.
wife back home? Yeah, we're gonna open up a little bed and breakfast." Like, no.
Oh, I just heard from my wife. She's pregnant. I'm gonna have a little boy. You are dead.
So dead.
Yeah,
Just-
exactly.
It's like if you track who was talking about the future, it was like Tyrion, oh, maybe we'll all be okay in the crypts.
Yeah.
It's very scary. I don't know. But speaking of love, sweet Podrick, maybe he sings to the ladies. Maybe that's his secret.
I know.
All along.
Not just a golden voice, golden something else, golden all the things. Maybe that's the one thing he could actually do for those girls. He
Spencer?
He's a tripod.
We did get a really nice Lord of the Rings moment, and for quite a lot of it, I feel like I'm just watching Lord of the Rings Part 4, I guess. But going off to battle with a song is kind of a time-tested thing, and I did really enjoy the song that they picked with Jenny of Old Stones. It's a song that's referenced many times in the book. It is kind of a bit of a foreshadowing. As far as I'm aware, I think only the first lyric is actually mentioned in the book, and the rest of it all kind of came from the showrunners and from I'm gonna screw up his name, but the one who Raman, the one who does all the music. Sorry. Dijon.
Will fact check us.
Sorry, I'm terrible at
It's Ramin
pronunciations.
Djawadi.
Djawadi. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Sorry. So this kind of just goes all back a little bit into Targaryen family history, so strap in. Essentially, Jenny of Old Stones, if it wasn't for her, Dany or Jon probably never would have been born. This goes back to essentially her great-grandfather. He had a son, Duncan Targaryen. Duncan Targaryen, the firstborn, was supposed to be king until he met Jenny of Oldstones, fell in love with her, abdicated the throne to his younger brother Jaehaerys, who was then the father of the Mad King, and so on and so forth. When Jenny of Oldstones came to court with Duncan, they brought along this woods witch who prophesied that the prince that was promised was going to be born from Aerys and Rhaella's line. Before that, Aerys and Rhaella did not really like each other, but because of that prophecy, Jaehaerys made them marry, and therefore Dany, Viserys, Rhaegar, Jon, all of them were actually born. So the way the song came about is because of a bit of a tragedy, though. Essentially, the great-grandfather decided that he wanted to bring dragon eggs back into the world. So he set them on fire at Summerhall, which was the Targaryen summer home. Big fire came out, killed the great-grandfather Aegon, killed Duncan, killed also Duncan the Tall, which if you read the Duncan Egg series, that's the same Duncan. And Aegon, the great-grandfather of Dany, is Egg. So Duncan the Tall, also one of Brienne of Tarth's ancestors. So cool. But essentially the reason that they brought in that song and the reason that it's going to be a little bit prophetic is the song is really about a king giving up his rightful claim for love. So there's a little something in there, all of it ending in tragedy. Basically, prophecy is a bitch.
Prophecy is a bitch on the show, and it's always, they've mentioned several times that you can't take it at face value. But the interesting thing about this episode is that it has, in a couple of different ways, driven home the idea that this Azor Ahai, the prince that was promised, that everybody's pretty sure. There's lots of theories, like, could it be the Hound? It looks to be either Jon or Dany. This song is all like, that would not have happened had he not abdicated. So that's one of the meanings. But also, it's like when you think about the ghost that she's dancing with, is that partially, there was a comment about that's partially Daenerys' story now. Like
dancing with the ghosts of the people she loves.
Yeah, like a king that was fallen, one she can't remember, one that loves her best, Jorah.
Yeah. There's a lot of deep dive. Donna Dickens did a really good piece on this on Fandom if you want to get back into the story as well. There's also a theory that Jenny, well, first of all, that the Woods Witch was actually one of the last children of the forest, and that Jenny was a descendant of the first men. She also possibly was a green seer, and the song is about her losing herself in her memories because the death of her husband drove her mad.
Right, and it's also, to your point, it's about the joining of the children of the forest and the Targaryen blood in these two, and that he was so taken with her, which is another thing that we think about with
the first
Jon.
men, because Jenny was, the first men was Jenny. The Woods Witch was the children of the first men.
Yeah,
so
but there's a whole other theory. I love when we do this.
Sorry.
This is my favorite. No,
Tell me.
There's a whole other theory that Jenny is actually also the Woods Witch, and that she also had the blood of the children of the forest.
Yeah, bring the graphic back up.
This is just like,
It's so complicated.
She looks like Hermione.
She does. Yeah, she looks a little crazed there.
She has branches
apparently
in her
she was
hair.
very beautiful.
That's a Woods Witch. That's
Apparently
for sure.
she was beautiful.
So there's.
I love this. Oh, by the way, and this particular graphic, I put a link to the full one. They have the full Targaryen family tree on my Twitter page. It's from an artist on DeviantArt called Polly M. So if you want to check out the whole thing that she did, just check out my Twitter.
They all look like they're in Avatar: The Last
It's
Airbender.
fun.
They really do.
She wanted to do something besides
I think
all of them looking like silver-haired elves, and
I
I
love
like
it. I think it's amazing.
I think it's
Thank you
fun.
for bringing that in and
That's
breaking
fun.
that down. That
Very
song
helpful.
was very, very cool. But did you sort of take any? Are you tracking this stuff?
I was like, oh, that's cute. Oh, it sounds like, is that Florence and the Machine? Nice. If we were supposed to be parsing that live as that's happening, then we're all screwed.
Oh, I don't know that anyone was parsing that live. I think everyone was parsing it after the fact.
Sure.
But it is pretty interesting, and it brings us to another kind of marriage. Well, the Three-Eyed Raven in the show has an unknown original identity, and then the Blood Raven has a known original identity, which is also about the merging of these two bloodlines, the Targaryen bloodline and the First Men. But that brings us to a showdown of showdowns, Spencer Gilbert.
Oh, it's all heading up for Raisin Bran. Bran versus the Night King. Who will stay on top. I hate talking about Bran, but here we go anyways. He's so annoying. He's so creepy. And it turns out that he's the key to all of this. So we learned that that the Night King comes for Bran, or rather the Three-Eyed Raven, which he now is, over and over again. It turns out that rather than Bran being the Night King, which we can discuss, is that theory still viable?
Is that a thing?
That was a theory. That was a very popular theory that Bran actually time traveled back and was like his brain got stuck into the Night King's body, and that has been slowly driven mad over the years, and he's now the Night King. I'm not here for it anymore.
I don't think it works anymore. I think that now
I liked it at the time.
It's a classic Highlander situation. There can be only one. So that's where we find ourselves. The Night King wants to erase Bran, to erase the world's memories, I believe.
Yes.
And like Sam says something odd, like, your stories aren't just stories. So if we lose Bran, is the implication that we all become whites, that we all lose our humanity?
I mean, I don't believe so, but I do like this idea that all death is forgetting. It's forgetting who you are, forgetting who you are. And with the erasure of the Three-Eyed Raven / Bran, that you lose the true memories of this entire world, and all you'd have is written stories.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting kind of weird paradox, though, to me in this episode thematically, which is, on the one hand, they're holding up memory as being kind of like the most valuable aspect of humanity, but on the other hand, we have to dismantle ego in order to be able to properly, and who you perceive yourself to be, and your alliance to your house, and everything that makes up who you believe you are, in order to be a valuable player in this world. Like in the same breath, we're saying the memory and understanding of who you are based on your past is what makes you human. And in the next breath, we're like, but Daenerys, like, forget all of that, and Sansa, forget all of that.
Yeah,
and
forget your family name.
Right.
Like, you actually need to be part of something else and something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the more we find out about this, the less I understand.
Well,
what does the Night King really want? I know it's like kind of a vague, hand-wavy explanation. It's like he wants to erase the memory of the world. Are we buying that? Is that really the end result?
I don't think that's
here?
all there is. I'd be disappointed if that's all there is, because also, how would that play into what happened during the last long night, where he accepted apparently this pact to go away forever? How does that work?
I have a lot of issues with the last long night at this point, and I really do, and I because a couple things just aren't tracking for me. First of all, Bran says he's tried
a long
this.
night disbeliever.
Yeah, no, I'm not a disbeliever. I'm saying he said. The Night King has tried this with several other Three-Eyed Ravens. Well, like I said, we only know of the one other at this point. So if there were several other, yet they were resting for 1,000 years, they were up to a lot of shenanigans while they were asleep for 1,000 years.
I think they lived that long.
But it's just, it seems to, I do not understand that is a motive that makes sense. Like, it just is too broad for this show. That the motive is basically, I like death because it's fun. But except for the idea that the children of
when did Aria come on the show?
Well,
Yeah.
fair enough. But the children, she has reasons. She has reasons for who's on her list. But the children of the Forest, I guess, maybe just did make this machine, in a sense, who its only purpose is to hate mankind and to annihilate it in every sense of the word.
I would be on board with that if that's what we'd seen so far from the Night King, if he was this kind of mindless force of nature sweeping over the land, but he seems really human, or like he's got a personality. He's got like, what's up? Like he's throwing gestures out at people. He seems to hate certain people more than others. So I agree there might be more to this story than we're getting so far.
But also we're hearing it from Bran. Is Bran a reliable narrator?
Yeah, I don't think he is. Bran is basically just Google. It's all there, but you need to know what to search, and it doesn't necessarily mean he understands any of it. And also,
I think he's reliable though. Like he's too above it all to lie. Maybe he wouldn't tell somebody anything, but I don't think he's going to try to like deceive anyone at this point. He seems like a pretty straight talker.
I just don't think that we've seen anything that Bran really understands the Night King's intentions necessarily, because it seems weird with everything we've seen with the Night King waiting up there for Jon beyond the wall, not coming down before this. I mean, what was he doing? Like waiting for Bran to come back up so that then he could find the three-eyed raven and then start spreading downward through the wall? Like, why even bother taking Craster's kids at all in that point?
It's a real, I mean, I will say, I do hope that some of this is going to get cleared up, that it's not just going to kind of be left unknown and surprise that's what the prequels are all about or something. That is kind of a concern at this point. Like, you don't have to answer everything. However, I do feel like a lot of this just isn't tracking or making sense for me right now.
So to touch on something you said, and remind me, the Craster's Keep deal was that he would offer up all of his sons to the Night King,
Yes.
who
In
created
exchange
them.
to not be killed by all the White Walkers.
To not
Yeah.
be killed by them.
Essentially.
And that was their agreement. And is there any truth to maybe the fan theory that the Night King is actually coming after Gillian Sam's child, she was from Craster's Keep, and that would be a son that would be promised to him?
Yeah, that's one of the theories, that he's coming after specifically Sam. Another theory is that he's coming after another promised boy who is Jon. Obviously, Bran says he's coming after him. So it's like they were on the move anyway, and maybe this would have kind of just heightened it or made the drive kind of more intense to come after the boy. But it seems crazy to me that they're coming after one baby boy.
Yeah, it does seem strange. I think I think there's still got to be something to do with this prince that was promised prophecy, and if all the Night King wants is Bran, that doesn't play into it at all. So I don't really
unless he
accept
is?
that. Except if Bran's the princess promised,
Which doesn't make
Doesn't make
sense.
sense at all. No, I mean, there's so much. There's so many signs and there's so much lore, and we've gone into this before about all the signs that herald the prince that was
Yeah.
promised that don't fit Bran. So, that being Jon or Dany really makes the most sense for that. How the prince that was promised is going to play into it, I think, is up for debate. But I think at this point, especially, they're mentioning the Jenny of Oldstone song again, which, is her friend that was mentioning the original prince that was promised that kind of kicked off this whole thing.
Right.
So I do think that still has something to play, and I don't think Bran is seeing all.
It's not even, this is my real question. It's not just that is he not seeing all, but what are his motives? So
Yeah, actually, I was gonna mention that too, just because maybe he is seeing all. Maybe Bran could be lying to them right now.
exactly, he could be lying. So this is my.
So he's Doctor Strange in this.
Yeah.
He's seen all the outcomes. He's seen the one which may or may not work, and this is the only way to get around to it.
Or okay, so we brought up the idea of the Blood Raven, right? Who is the three-eyed raven that we know anything about? And there's a lot of questions about his actions and behaviors, both in his life and as the three-eyed raven. But the thing that it looks like is that everything he did, whether it was morally questionable or not, was to drive towards Jon and Dany being born, towards the prince that was promised to save the world. But on the other hand, we don't know that, right? We don't really actually know what the purpose of the three-eyed raven is, other than what the three-eyed raven has told us it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're just taking it on faith that they're locked in this kind of eternal struggle for humanity. But Bran, I really don't think he has deception in him. He's clearly seeing things from the 10,000-foot perspective, and he's not caring what individuals' reaction to his stories are.
Well, in any event, there's a lot of kind of theorizing, obviously, that we're doing right now around this.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I will say about the idea of Bran as the Night King, which was I really liked that for a long time. But the truth is, it doesn't eliminate the Night King. If he, you know what I mean? The Night King would still be, if Bran exited in that moment, there would still be a Night King. It just wouldn't be him inside that body.
We could, I don't know if we want to talk tactics for a moment.
Let's
'cause
talk tactics.
I don't want to talk ourselves out of what's going to be the longest battle scene in film or television next week.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty dumb plan, right?
This seems like a stupid plan.
It's a stupid plan. Every soldier you lose, they gain one. And as cool as that'll be visually, if all you're trying to do is assassinate the Night King, why are they throwing every single fighting man and woman they have outside of the gates and then closing it up and saying, all right, go hold him off as long as you can, wait till he pushes through to Bran's treehouse.
Yeah.
Then maybe Theon will do something.
And why send them to crypts that are bigger than Winterfell itself full of dead bodies that
you
the
guys
Night
know
King
this.
can rise.
Yeah, can
You
we
know?
talk about this?
Yes.
Because how many times in the show did they say, "Oh, go to the crypts; they're safe"?
Yeah.
Like, really?
Come on.
And also, okay, and I'm gonna get a tiny bit spoilery for a second, so get away from here for like 15, 20 seconds if you don't want to talk about, because this did come from the preview for the
Scenes
next
from the
week's
next
episode.
episode,
Just
yeah.
a tiny little thing. So we'll do this when we're back. So, so there was a tiny little moment in the next week's episode where Dany says the dead are already here. And that, I think, coupled with all of everyone talking about how everyone's safe in the crypts and everyone will be okay down there and you should go down there if you don't want to fight, I think we're getting some really serious foreshadowing that some dead people are gonna rise. And let's not forget about that little bit of Arya running through the crypts with blood over half her face, looking absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
Am I safe to do this again?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean,
we're good.
but I think it's even in the show. Look, they're going to a place where there are dead bodies that he can control.
But
If
they're
he-
long dead. Like, what's the minimum
Not all of
viable
them.
amount of human tissue to bring
Not all of
someone
them.
back to life?
And
Like,
also, you don't need human tissue. I mean, a lot of those whites up in Hardhome were basically
They were
just
just
skeletons.
skeletons, yeah.
And they were plenty scary.
And also in the tree outside, the ones that were attacking the reeds outside of the Three-Eyed Raven's cave were,
yeah.
or tree,
Jason and the
tree
Argonauts.
cave.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were like skeletons. They were like, full Jason
so
and
we
the
could just
Argonauts.
have, Lyanna Stark and
It's
just
possible.
I
busting
know,
out of there.
and
Yeah.
it's very poetic. He always wanted a mother.
Yeah.
So there's, there you go. There's a couple of people that everyone's been theorizing that may or may not come back. There's a few that I think you can probably safely eliminate. I don't think we're going to get Ned. He's beheaded and he was boiled down to bones. So I'd be surprised if he came back. We don't know what happened to Catelyn's body, as far as I'm aware, in the show. I don't think if it was ever actually said what they did with her remains.
The main Starks, they're in like big stone sarcophagi, right? Like they're not
I mean, who knows?
just buried like an inch deep in the dirt. Like they can't really pop out.
Do
can they?
you know that?
I
I mean,
don't know.
also they do mention,
It's
all
magic.
of these people are buried with stone sword or iron swords across their laps, in theory to keep them from rising,
Yeah.
which I guess was a danger back then. Sure, but one person I think that isn't buried that way, and we may have a good possibility of seeing, is Rickon.
Yeah.
No.
He'll get more screen time, you guys.
Maybe he learned to zig. Poor Rickon. Yeah. The whole theory about why they have the iron swords is goes into the theory that we talked about last week, that they had White Walker blood and that they were likely or able potentially to rise and clean up their Benjen. The children of the forest saved Benjen.
Well, you know who's down in the crypts, just briefly? Tyrion. Tyrion's
Oh,
down
no.
there. Yeah, he's going to be riding it out with his special brain. Everyone kept talking about how nice his brain is, so we might be losing that next week.
Tasty, delicious
Oh,
brain.
sweet
He also
brain.
said something that could be some poetic foreshadowing. Well, he did say maybe we're all going to live. But he also said, regarding Cersei, maybe after I'm dead, I'll march down to King's Landing and rip her apart.
I did
Yes.
notice that Jamie didn't even hear because he was
Yeah.
off looking at his blonde lady love.
Which
but-
I liked because that
Yeah.
goes into I know hasn't been brought up on the show, but the brother killing Cersei.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's, oh man.
Just saying, third head of the dragon, didn't say it had to be a living dragon.
Aww.
Finally get to fly.
Let me ask you this: who do you think's going to survive the crypts? Because clearly, it's not the little girl that they set us. Like they laid it on so thick with look at the
Shireen, baby
babies
Shireen.
and baby Shireen and the Tyrion's in the crypt and all these innocents are in the crypt and they're probably all going to die.
Yeah.
So we'll get a blue-eyed. I watched the episode again with subtitles, and I guess her name is Tila. Shireen Light is named Tila.
From House Tequila.
We're probably gonna get a blue-eyed Tila next week. Just coming back. We'll see. I don't know. Who do you think is going to survive?
Yeah, is Davos down there? Who else is...
Davos will fight.
Yeah, he'll fight.
I think he was one of the ones, and correct us, Lon, if we're wrong, but I thought Davos was on the fence because he didn't think he would be that valuable. Like Sam
Right.
It's unclear to me if Stan's actually going to fight or if he just said he's going to fight but not with the sword.
Yeah.
And he thought the sword would have been better used in Jorah's hand, but he'll still fight.
Yeah.
It's unclear to me who's actually going to partake in the fight. As many people as can, I think, right? So basically, all of the most vulnerable are going to be in those crypts. With clearly, Arya must come down, to try and help.
At some point. Yeah. I mean, who will live overall? I'm not sure. I think we have a good possibility of Arya surviving the next battle. I think she has a good chance. But just surviving the crypts, probably Arya. Probably Varys. I don't want him to die yet.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh.
It's so sad. And I feel like the next week's analysis is just going to be like, and then remember when this guy ran over here and stabbed that guy?
And then they were dead?
Because it's just going to be action from here on out.
It is. It really is. Well, I do think one thing, though, is that we've talked about this before, that maybe this is a fake out, right? That he is sending some of his people, undead peoples, to Winterfell, but he himself, like this whole let's draw out the Night King plan won't work because he himself will not be there. And this is a tactic that's been used again and again and again on the show. So it's like you send smaller amount of troops to one place, but fake out, and they're actually going somewhere else.
Rob himself used that.
Yeah.
And got the smaller portion of his forces slaughtered to do it, but he ended up winning the bigger battle.
Exactly.
And it's too early in the show for there to be a real decisive ending.
Agreed.
One way or the other.
Well, and there's a few details that might kind of feed into this. I mean, you've got the couple visions of King's Landing over the Iron Throne being destroyed and snow coming down. It is snowing there now. There was one way back in the day of a vision where a dragon shadow is flying over King's Landing. You only see the one dragon shadow. Maybe that means something. So I honestly just really subscribe to this theory mostly on a timing issue. I just don't think we have time to watch a shambling horde go past Winterfell and get all the way down to King's Landing in the remaining 3 episodes after this battle. I just don't see it. I could be wrong, but so for me, if the Night King is flying down ahead to go to King's Landing, and possibly now we've got an undead golden company
That's
that
what I was
comes
thinking.
back up.
I see golden 20,000.
That could be something else,
Because then if it's like they do this skirmish here at Winterfell, right, and they deplete but first of all, they're going to have some of the undead soldiers there, right?
Yeah.
And then he's actually going to King's Landing and making 20,000 new ones out of the Golden Company, and then they're coming from both sides.
Can you imagine if
There's
it
no
really
left,
is
yeah.
all ending over at Iron Islands because that's where
Riding it out. That would be appropriate for the show.
awful.
I would love that. That would be the nice, miserable ending we were promised.
Yeah, by the way that they just wrapped everything up all nicely with a bow, I was like, can we just end the show right now? We're good. It reminded me of that episode of Friends where Phoebe revealed that her mother used to cut off before the sad endings of movies. So she never knew that Old Yeller died or anything. This felt like that. Just end it here. Everyone's happy. Brienne's a knight. Arya got laid. Good times. Just we're good. It's fine.
No. End it after the Night King wins, and the next 3 episodes after that is just snow.
Yeah.
Also,
that's
people
it.
have reminded us, he does have a dragon. It's not, we were saying, they can't get over water. Well, he can.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can. But I like Spencer. The last 3 episodes are just the
Milling
new
around.
screensaver background that you have on your TV of just a
Whistling
falling
wind,
snow. That's it. Instead of a crackling fire.
Lots of stuff happening. Lon, we're going to do our Raging Throners. If there's anything that we haven't mentioned so far,
Go for it.
You guys.
Thanks for that.
I think you should try, yeah. I'm in.
It's such an idea.
We're going to do it. If there's anything that we haven't talked about so far that you guys loved from the episode, let Lon know and he'll shout it out. We're going to talk about ours, starting with yours, Spencer.
Mine was the fully formed maternal. Oh, there it is. Nice.
Hey, Raging Brothers! What's up?
Perfect.
It's
Good
back.
topic.
It popped back up.
The nice. The maternal relationship between Brienne and Podrick that's developed. She's just the moment where he was sparring one-handed and kind of kicking butt, and she was like, "That's my boy," and then telling him, "Oh, you can drink, but only half a goblet." I think that was such a perfect evolution of their roles.
Yeah, that was really sweet. How about you?
I think my favorite moment that we haven't talked about yet was Sam equating stealing books from the Citadel with killing a White Walker and a Then. Like, that's what he considers such a bad crime. I loved that.
Pretty
I thought that
badass.
was
I mean,
really
it's not
fun.
like there's Kindle. Like, these things are this
I
thick
know,
and like this big.
but like he's risking library fines over killing people. It's just great. And one little thing that I want to have happened, and this is my headcanon and my fandom service in my head, was when Tyrion and Bran were having that moment back and forth in front of the fire. Tyrion finally told him the end of that honeycomb jackass brothel joke.
Yeah.
Never getting it.
Never will.
My favorite was the, I liked seeing the Knights watch the crows reunite, like 3 little crows on a wall hanging out.
Yeah.
Burn me if if I die first was sweet. But also the callback to Shireen, I thought was very, very, very pointed and poignant for Davos, and that likely he's going to have to suffer that pain again with this little girl because she is now, he thinks he sent her to safety, and probably he didn't. And that's going to be another great irony of the show. So that was mine, not a raging throner, but I thought it was a very, very poignant moment. Lon, what do you got?
Lots of good stuff in the chat room. Julia said Theon and Sansa's reunion was her big moment. Jason said Sam giving Heartsbane to Jorah. Claire picked Missandei and Grey Worm reacting to the bigotry of the Northerners is her favorite moment. And Abby said, is the big woman still here? Tormund's question upon arriving at Winterfell was a top moment. 2 big questions that were going through the chat room the whole show that we did not yet touch on. 1, people are very fired up to find out what's happening with Melisandre, and will she be back for next week's big battle? And 2, is there any chance that Hodor is going to reappear in blue-eyed white form?
Well, Melisandre, I mean, this
Someone
is Lord of
thought
the
she was
Rings.
there.
Melisandre's just like, look for me on the dawn
the
of the
east.
5th day.
right.
Like, look to the east,
Look to the
man.
east, yeah.
She's gonna come riding over a hill.
Someone actually tweeted me that they thought they saw her without her necklace, so in her true form.
Oh, the old
That's
woman
just everyone in
going into the
Winterfell.
crowd.
Yeah.
Over age 40.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah, you age pretty hard up there.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if she just popped up like.
She, in
boom.
theory, has her own sort of army of priests and things with flaming swords.
Yeah.
So it's possible, but I doubt it because they really haven't established that in the show. We're definitely going to see her again. They've straight
They
up
keep
said
mentioning
it.
her. Yeah, they keep saying, "Oh, what if
The Red
Melisandre
Woman.
were here? The Red Woman. Remember the Red Woman?" So yeah, she'll play some part. Probably next week.
I wouldn't be surprised if she showed up at this particular battle.
Yeah.
Well, they have established that she hates being left out of battle, specifically. Like,
Yeah.
when Stannis left her behind at Battle of Blackwater, she did not take that well. So she feels like she can be a huge asset during a battle.
Well,
We've
we're gonna.
established that.
I think she will probably. I don't know if she'll pop up during this battle because that's going to be a lot happening during the battle to be like, hey, remember me? Fire! It's just
Longest
like
of
80
all
minutes.
time.
Yes.
Roth. So
80
long. There's gonna
minutes
have to
of
be
murder.
acts and the scenes within scenes. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna have time for a lot.
it's a lot of murder.
Yeah.
In a couple, we're going to lose a lot of people next week. I swear to you guys, now that you guys are talking about Craster's baby, if this whole thing is over that one baby. Like, that's a level of OCD, Night King, that you need to address.
Flip the table.
You just
be
really,
done.
Real letter
really
of the
need
law
to
there.
address.
But
Yeah.
I do want to ask, too, for the fans that asked this question, what do you think the percentage is we're going to see Hodor?
I want to say 0 because that'd be too sad. He already had the perfect ending.
Yeah.
He was sort of ripped up, right? I mean, I felt like when I saw this question in the chat room, he was holding the door. The whites are ripping to get through him. I don't know how much is left.
Again, like,
Yeah,
I
no
don't think
vocal
you
cords.
need
Yeah.
much.
I don't think we could get a full Hodor back.
I think he's just going to kind of like
He's
it would be
shambling.
like pieces.
shambling and dragging himself along. I don't know. I hope not. I don't want to see that.
I don't either. I don't think we'll see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
I
see what
hope we
happens.
don't see it, but we are going to see a lot of death. You can participate. We were doing a death pool every week, which we'll continue to do, but we're also going to do a life pool this week. And who do you think is going to live? Because for me, I feel like, again, the sweeter the moment, the more they were laying it on thick and reminding you in these last 2 episodes that you really love these characters. Theon, I think, has had this total redemptive arc. That was a beautiful emotional moment with Sansa. He's probably dead. The couples that are planning to go off on the sunset together, they're probably dead.
Yep.
The woman who made us all cry because she was knighted and finally seen, she's probably dead.
I disagree with you. I think Brienne will
she'll make
live.
it, yeah.
I think Brienne
You do?
will live.
I hope so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Brienne will live. She may die at the very end. I think she survives this battle. I'm putting it out
I
there.
hope so. I
Crossing
hope
my
you're
fingers.
right.
Look at that smile.
Yeah, because she belongs.
Yeah, that's
in-
what I'm saying. Look at that smile.
I want her to live.
If there is a generally happy ending or a ending in which there's like a new world, she belongs in it. She's
She
a symbol of
does.
the changing face of Westeros. I do think that Jaime's gonna die, or not gonna die. Sorry, he
Okay.
will
Oh.
live because it's way too soon for him to just for that to have been his last episode. There's so many unresolved
Just live through
things.
this battle, not
Yeah.
necessarily the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who do you think is the most significant character that we might lose?
Tyrion. I'm on Team Tyrion is not going to survive next week, or will be whited.
Whited.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. The most significant one. I don't want to agree with Spencer. I really don't. But really, I don't. You know what? I do disagree with Spencer because I think he still has a part to play with the confrontation with Cersei. So as far as who we may actually, I think we might lose Pod.
Oh,
No.
dare you.
I think we might lose Podrick, you guys.
Pod is going to go off to Brooklyn and open up a little bakery with hot pie, and that is all there is to it.
I think we'll lose Pod.
Or Hoboken, whichever they choose. I no.
It's in Essos. Yeah.
But I have a bigger, I don't know that this would happen, but the way things are going, I wouldn't be shocked that if they've led us all this way and made such a thing over John, and now he knows, and it's this big moment, and what if she just fully in a fit of ambition and it's in psychosis,
Kind of lets him die.
kind of lets him die.
Yeah.
Oof,
But
man.
you can't die twice. They already brought him back to life and
Asperric
made a whole.
Apparently you can die a bunch.
They made a
Only
whole
live
to do
for once.
over bringing him back, and just to
I
die
don't know.
again. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think John has the strongest plot armor of any of the characters
So
left.
far, yeah. Well, I'm still on team John is new Night King. So does that count as a death?
I think it counts as a loss
Yeah.
of who he is.
Yeah.
If we're going with the whole thesis of that your memory and your understanding of yourself, then Bran is also dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've said Bran is dead for Bran says he's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
He's not Brandon Stark anymore. Already, the old Bran is already gone.
Yeah.
I think Tyrion, just as long as the camera's on me, I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
I think
Any other-
Tyrion's the first to go next week, or the big one to go.
Yeah. He's
Any other
lost his job.
predictions?
I don't think Jorah makes it.
Yeah. Same.
I think Jorah's gonna
Probably
bite it.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Right, because why should she have one person that actually she can judge? Lon, any other predictions?
Oh, that was my really big one. I do think we're going to get Melisandre back next week. That's my other big prediction. She can't stand missing out on those battles. She doesn't want to be waiting for the battle to end and then show up. That's not her style.
Well, next week is going to be an epic episode, obviously. Dan Murrell told us that they canceled a screening of Avengers Endgame at the Academy in order to play this episode next week. So that tells you something about how big this is going to be and how significant. If we couldn't already tell, so we will be here live at 11 a.m. next Monday to talk about it with you. Participate, go to the page on Fandom, leave us your fan theories, participate in the poll, and we will be talking about all of that here next week. Michelle, where can they find you in the meantime?
They can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Michele Boyd.
Spencer Gilbert.
Hey now.
Hey.
Yeah, Phantom Entertainment. Same time, same place tomorrow, but probably not talking as much about Game of Thrones.
You never know.
Yeah, you
It
never
might
know.
be a slow news day. I'm Roth Cornet on the Twitter and the things. I do Instagram, but it's mostly my cat. Lon Harris. You'll be Lon Harris on Twitter.
At Lons, Lons.
Yeah. All right. We will speak to you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat place, lots of bat death next Monday.
Huzzah!